Greetings. This is Martin Kenney speaking to you from the beautiful British Virgin Islands on the island of Tortola in the Eastern Caribbean Sea. I've been invited to do a 10-minute short clip for the 38th Annual Cambridge International Symposium on Economic Crime, which, as we all know, has been deferred for a year because of the pandemic of COVID-19 to early September of next year, 2021. I can see from the very detailed 43-page program for this symposium that we are to speak of regarding a central theme as to who pays and who should pay for economic crime. And I see from the program that there are two essential questions that have been framed for discussion next September. Who is actually harmed by economic crime is the first question. And the second one seems to be who should be held more accountable for economic crime. As to the first one, well, by way of background, I'm a fraud and asset recovery lawyer, and I've been doing this work since 1990. I have a firm of 25 professionals here in the British Virgin Islands, and all we do is to represent victims of financial fraud or crime to try and recover value to meet their loss. So I would break down the answer to the first question is anyone and everyone can be a victim of this pernicious activity. Individuals, massive groups of investors or consumers, sovereign states, financial institutions, anyone and everyone is my hypothesis as to who a firm like ours might end up representing. And in fact, we have represented all of the above. As to who should be held more accountable, I really appreciate the addition of the word more, because you could argue that not many people who are responsible for this unworthy activity of fraud are being held accountable at all, or certainly less than they should be. To answer that question, I would break the response down into two parts. I would like to speak a moment about traditional asset recovery versus non-traditional recovery. Traditional asset recovery is holding the primary predicate offender to account by forward or reverse tracing in a dual directional sense strands of value connected to wrongdoing or wrongdoers, identifying pockets of value or assets, again, linked or attributed to wrongdoing or wrongdoers, and then swooping down one day with the assistance of courts around the world to preserve or freeze the fructus sceleris, the fruits of the fraud. That's what we think about asset recovery. Bank accounts in Switzerland, yachts super yachts in the south of France, a flat on Fifth Avenue for the mistress, the tangible things of value, and sometimes intangible, bank deposits and securities dealer accounts that we would target and try and wrestle to the ground, liquidate, and get value back to victim. I think where most of the value that we are recovering today in larger scale cases is really from non-traditional asset recovery approach, which is to target the deep-pocketed enablers, the banks, the lawyers, the accountants, and others who are facilitating wrongful activity, which is bringing injury to victims. And I'm talking about when we're tracing to recover the traditional assets that we go after, we will also be deliberately measuring or calibrating the degree of culpability on a scale of, let's say, innocence or the lack of responsibility to negligence, to recklessness, blind eye knowledge of the obvious, to let's say, willfulness, actual knowledge of and participation overtly in the fraud. So all of the enablers that we confront in our tracing investigations will be graded in that, let's say, continuum of responsibility and sued for damages to the extent that we can properly mount a claim in a friendly forum for remedy. And I'll give an example. The Stanford International Bank case, which is the, I think, second largest Ponzi scheme in world history, was run out of Antigua from 1991 to 2009 by a man called Robert Allen Stanford, who's now in prison in America for 110 years. In that case, there were 22,000 victims. Traditional asset recovery has fetched or will fetch 5 cents on a dollar back to victims. Say $500 million of the $5 billion that were stolen or gone missing in the fraud. That leaves a hole in the balance sheet of the victims of about 95% of their losses. And this is a troubling prospect when all of the traditional asset recovery we can do will only fetch a nickel on a dollar. So what we've done in that case is sued Toronto Dominion Bank in Toronto, HSBC in London, Societe Generale Geneva, some large law firms in America for having facilitated this fraud. And we would hope that at the end of the carriage of those cases, we might get the recovery profile in the case, moving it from perhaps 5 cents on a dollar up to hopefully 30, 40, 50, or perhaps more cents. And yet this is 10 years on. Our firm has been working as co-general counsel for the liquidators since the Stanford matter in Antigua from here in the Virgin Islands since 2011. The case actually got started in 2009 with some antecedent liquidators and legal team, and we're now 2020. I don't think we're going to move through the life cycle of all these cases for another 5 years or so. That's too much time and too much effort required to get remedy in favor of the victims. But it can be done. It just means patience and resources and leadership. So I hope that my short contribution is of some use, and I look forward to seeing everyone in attendance at the 38th Symposium at Jesus College, Cambridge in September of 2021. Thank you.